Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My goal with this channel is to give you my maritime insights on maritime news and topics explained in a way that anyone can understand in a clear, in-depth, timely, informative and professional manner. So I'm a Dutch former deck officer on some of the largest ferries, semi-submersibles, container and cruise ships, and I graduated from Maritime Academy in 2000 as a maritime officer, who is someone who has a dual license to be a deck officer and also a marine engineer. The largest ship I sailed on as a deck officer was a 285 meter or 935 feet long Holland America Line cruise ship of 90,000 tons with 3,000 people on board. Now, I bet you can expect to learn more in a few minutes from watching my videos than from hours of watching the general news trying to explain maritime topics. So you can expect no fluff, no drama, just facts. Now, obviously you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, but YouTube does not show all my videos. So the best thing is to actually sign up for my free newsletter on my website, which is www.markhennis.com. And then once you have subscribed, the cool thing is that you will also get instant access to my maritime virtual 360 tours. So what is that? Well, for example, here I did a virtual 360 tour of a VOC sailing ship called the Amsterdam, which is very cool. So as soon as you sign up for the newsletter, you will get instant access to it, and you can explore 16 different locations in, on, and around this VOC sailing ship, which is very, very cool. You can look in all directions. So you just click on an image, and then you can take a 360-degree look around. Now, I'm planning to do lots more on various different kind of ships, and as soon as I have them ready, you will get them in your inbox. Now, so you can also subscribe or follow me on social media, whatever social media platform you prefer. Simply search for Mark Hennis, my name, on Instagram, on Twitter, or on Facebook. Now, if you're interested in some more of my maritime background or my maritime experience or the ships that I have sailed on, I would like to show you a few photos of the ships that I sailed on with some stories behind it. My parents always had a sailboat, so when I was just 2 years old, I was already introduced to being on a boat and being on the water and to sailing. So that's how it all started. And then when I got a little bit older, my dad asked, "Hey, Mark, do you want to, sail your own little boat?" So we rented this little Optimist sailboat, and I captained a ship for the first time, I would say. And then I got a little bit older, and then I got a 420, which is also a small sailboat, 4 meter and 20 centimeters long. And then I also started sailing my parents' sailboat when we were on vacations. And we would vacation quite a lot in Zeeland, which is a province in the Netherlands. And we would also go to the North Sea. And we would also visit Vlissingen. And when we were sitting on the boulevard in Vlissingen, all these giant container ships were coming by and other cargo ships. So I asked my dad, I said, "Hey, where do all these ships go?" And he said, "Mark, they go all over the world." So I was intrigued by that, and I was like, how can I, work on there, or maybe, drive these ships or sail these ships? Well, it happened to be that also in Vlissingen, there is a maritime academy called Maritime Instituut de Ruiter. So I had my sights on this school to then become a deck officer on these large ships. So here I was about 14 years old with my sister, and we were visiting this school, and I knew that is what I would like to go do, to pursue a career at sea. Now, little did I know, when I was about 4 years old, my dad took this picture with my mom, and in the background you can see the Maritime Academy that I would later go to. So that's quite the coincidence. Now, in the last year of the Maritime Academy, of all your training, then you have to go do your apprenticeship. So you get some sea time, which is 2 times 5 months on 2 different ships. So you go 5 months on one ship and 5 months on another ship. So I decided to do my apprenticeship with P&O Nedlloyd, which was a large container shipping company, later bought by Maersk. But at the time, it was Dutch flagged ships with Dutch officers, and I joined the ship in Singapore. So I had never flown, and I flew from Amsterdam in the Netherlands all the way to Singapore, which was a 14-hour flight. That was my very first flight. So after that, all my flights were short, basically. So I said from Singapore, let me show you on a map what itinerary that we did with that ship. So I flew from the Netherlands, from Amsterdam. I flew to Singapore, which is about here, right there. And then what we did like a few ports in Japan. We went to Nagoya, we went to Tokyo, Shimizu, and Kobe. So 4 ports in Japan, and then we went via Singapore. We went through the Suez Canal, through the Mediterranean, Bay of Biscayne, through the English Channel, and then we did 4 ports here in Europe. So we went to Le Havre in France, Southampton in England, then we went to Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and to Hamburg in Germany. So this trip from Europe through the Suez Canal, Singapore, and Japan took us about 1 month. So back and forth is 2 months, and I was on board for 5 months, and so I did that trip 2.5 times. And obviously, on board the ship, you do a whole bunch of tasks that you need to do for school, and one of them was also celestial navigation. So here I'm on the port bridge wing, doing some celestial navigation with the sun. But then I went to my second ship, the P&O Nedlloyd Colombo. And on this ship I was with my classmate Martin, which still today is my best friend. And once we crossed the equator for the first time, Neptune and Ariel, they come on board, and there's a ceremony that you have crossed the equator for the first time. So we got to do that together, which was kind of neat. The itinerary that we did with the Nedlloyd Colombo, I joined in Singapore, and then we went to South Africa. So we went to Cape Town, Durban, and Port Elizabeth. So 3 towns and 3 ports in South Africa. And then we went back to Singapore, and then we did a couple of ports in Japan. We went to South Korea. We went to Hong Kong. We went to Kuala Lumpur, I remember. We went there too. And then back to Singapore. And then back to South Africa. So that was also a trip up and down, which also took about roughly a month one way and then 1 way back. So a 2-month round trip. So we did that about 2.5 times as well. Then my next ship, once I completed my my schooling and I graduated from Maritime Academy, I went on to go on my first ship as a deck officer, and I joined the Schieborg, which was from Wagenborg, which was a ro-ro, so a roll-on, roll-off ship, ferry, kind of. And we had trailers, truck trailers on the top deck over here, and then we had containers with paper in the bottom of the ship. So we were doing a route between Zeebrugge, which is in Belgium. Let me see if I can show you. So we went from Zeebrugge, which is roughly over here in Belgium. We went through the North Sea and then all the way up here over Denmark and then to Gothenburg. And then back again. I think this trip was about maybe 2 days or 3 days of a trip. And I was on board for, I believe, 2 months. And then I had 2 months off. And then, but I was happy that I got to go on this ship, my very first ship. First of all, it was brand new. And second of all, these are some of the busiest waters in the world. So if you can navigate through all this, there is oil rigs, there is wind farms, there are fishing vessels, vessel traffic separation schemes, there are tankers, container ships, cruise ships, pleasure boats. Honestly, the busiest waters in the world are right here. And if you can navigate safely through this back and forth over and over again, this is really where I learned how to sail. So that I had a big advantage later going on other ships, that I was never really scared to go into busy traffic areas, because that's what I started off doing. So that was some very good experience right there. Then let's see. Yes, I went to the Assi Scanlink, which was also from Wagenborg, and we did a trip. Our voyage was from Terneuzen in the Netherlands, which is about here, close to Antwerp. And then we went all the way over Denmark. We went through the Baltic, and then we went all the way up to Luleå here in Sweden. We did a similar. We had either pulp on board, or we had old paper on board, or we brought back new paper the other way. Now, but the cool thing about this voyage was that I've done this twice in the winter, and the Baltic Sea is completely blocked with ice. There's about 3 feet or 1 meter thick ice that you have to go through. And the ship was an ice class ship, so you could actually go through it. But sometimes we would still get stuck, and we would call a icebreaker that would come in front of us, and they would clear our way, and we would follow in their path to go somewhere else. But that was crazy, because you can imagine if you're going through the ice, the ship is like shaking like crazy, and everything is vibrating on the ship. That was quite the experience. Also, there was no water that you could see. There was no blue water and waves. It was just a white area with snow on top of it. So ice and snow, and it was a very different experience. And also hardly any sun. The sun would just come up and on the horizon and then go down again. It was, mostly dark during the daytime. It was minus 42, so it was super cold. And I remember we were going to a pilot station. And I called the pilot. I said, "Where do we pick you up?" He says, "Hey, do you see that Christmas tree there on the ice?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Just go to the Christmas tree and stop there, and I will come." And I was like, "How is he going to come? There's no, you cannot come here with a boat, because that's how they normally come, right, with a boat." But he came with a hovercraft. So he came over the ice with a hovercraft. I saw this like flashing light in the distance, and I was like, well, what is that? So I was looking at my binoculars, and then I saw there was a sign on it, said pilot. I was like, is that the pilot? And the ship actually, because the ice is broken right next to the ship, and then it is solid again, he came all the way up to the ship, and then where the ice was not solid, he had a ladder, and he put the ladder against the ship. And then he came on board like that, and then we continued sailing on to the next stop. So that was a very cool experience on the Assi Scanlink, going through the ice. It was an older kind of ship, but this was a very cool experience. I wouldn't want to miss it. Then I worked on another ferry, on P&O North Sea Ferries on the Norbank. And the Norbank went from Liverpool to Dublin. So that was a stretch over here. We went from Liverpool, and then we went to Dublin, back and forth. That trip took maybe about 10 hours or so. And I was on board for 2 months, and I had 2 months off. So that was the story on the P&O North Sea Ferries on the Norbank. Then I joined the Vancouverborg on again with Wagenborg, and this was more general cargo. We did paper and pulp, or we did coal, or all kinds of different cargo we shipped with this boat. This was actually the smallest ship I've ever sailed on. I think it was 9,000 ton. It was kind of rocky. I wasn't used to it. I was used to the big container ships with 7,000 containers, 300 meters or 900 feet long. Even in a hurricane, it was barely moving. These 9,000 ton ships in the Bay of Biscayne, I remember we were listing quite considerable. Then our itinerary was actually really cool as well. I joined in Rotterdam, which hardly ever happens. Normally you always fly to a ship, wherever it is. Maybe it's Singapore, Hong Kong, or Hawaii, or it doesn't matter. It's hardly ever in Rotterdam. This is the first time I joined a ship in Rotterdam. And then we sailed up to over Denmark again into the Baltic, and then we went up to Finland. I believe we went to Turku, and there we picked up paper, and then we sailed that paper all the way over Denmark here, and then we went to the Strait of Gibraltar, Mediterranean, and then we went to Turkey. And then I believe we went to Izmir or maybe Antalya. I don't remember exactly. Or Marmaris maybe. I don't remember. But somewhere in Turkey where we delivered the paper rolls. Then we went back empty again, back all the way through the Mediterranean, back over here, over Denmark in the Baltic. And I believe we then got pulp. And that we sailed to Canada, strangely enough. I was like, that's kind of weird. But it was a big pulp that we sailed over here, over Denmark, over England, over the Atlantic Ocean. And then the cool part was right over here. So we sailed into the St. Lawrence, and we went past Montreal, Quebec, Montreal, and then all over the Canadian lakes, Lake Ontario. We went over Lake Erie, Lake Sinclair, Lake Huron, and then the final Lake Superior, and we went all the way to Duluth. So that was like the furthest inland that you could go with a ship. And what was really cool to see, as you know, the Niagara Falls are here. Niagara Falls are right there, and we were passing it. Now, the Niagara Falls are super high, so you had to go through the locks, and I think we went in 3 locks in a row, so 3 steps to get all the way into Lake Erie. And then I think there was more locks. Yeah, in Sarnia we had a lock as well, and here in Detroit I believe also. So there was a lot of locks to go through. But it was a very cool experience sailing that far inland. And then I remember we went back, and then we went to Montreal, actually Quebec, and then I flew back from there to Amsterdam. That was the end of my contract. It was about a 4-month contract, I believe, on the Vancouverborg. And then I joined Holland America Line. So I had a lot of experience in cold weather. On the North Sea and in the Baltic, and I always saw these cruise ships, and I know of course they mostly go to warmer areas and nice itineraries, and I was like, that would be cool to sail on a cruise ship. So I joined Holland America Line, also Dutch flagged ship with mostly Dutch officers or British. And then here's a picture of the old Noordam, because there's a new Noordam at this point, but this is the old Noordam I sailed on. And then here's a photo of the entire deck team with all the officers and with the quartermasters and the sailors that help us with maintaining the ship and with docking the ship and so on. Now, The itinerary on the Noordam, I remember this was my very first, I got my letter of assignment, an LOI, and I was flying to Italy. I flew to Rome because the ship was in Civitavecchia, which is right here. It's about an hour drive away from Rome, and that's where I joined the ship and Holland America Line for the first time. And then we did the Eastern Caribbean, so we went all over here to Greece and Turkey and Cyprus and Alexandria, Tunisia, Malta, Palermo, all these ports that you see, we went to all of them. Valencia, Barcelona, and Monaco, and yeah, the Eastern and Western Caribbean are also very nice cruising area in the summer, of course, because when it's winter in Europe, the cruise ships are mostly in warmer weather somewhere else in the Caribbean or in Hawaii or somewhere. Yeah, it was very nice. So that was the Noordam, and I believe at the end of my contract, actually, yes, we did. Then we repositioned. We went to Funchal, which is over here, which is Portugal. And I think we also went to, I don't think we went to the Tenerife, but we went to Funchal for sure in Portugal. And then we made our crossing to the Caribbean. And then we did some various ports here in the Caribbean. I remember St. Lucia, Barbados, and that was out of Tampa. Yeah, we went out of Tampa there. So I did a couple of cruises on the old Noordam. That was super cool. It was a good first experience. Then after that, I joined the Nieuw Amsterdam, but it wasn't named Nieuw Amsterdam. It was named the MS Patriot. So Holland America Line sold the Nieuw Amsterdam to an American company that was only doing cruises in Hawaii. So they were doing Honolulu and Hawaii and Hilo, all those islands, and they stayed there. And to stay in only American waters, you need to be American flagged, have American crew, and so on. They did that for a while, but I guess they went bankrupt, and then Holland America Line bought the ship back. But it had been laid up in the port of Honolulu for a long time, and the systems needed to be updated again, and yeah, it needed a lot of work to get going again. But what we did, we went, let's see, we were in Hawaii, in Honolulu, over here, and then we sailed the ship all the way to the Panama Canal, through the Panama Canal, through the Caribbean, and then we went to Charleston, South Carolina, right over here. And that is where the new owners would join the ship. A Greek owner bought the ship back from Holland America Line, and then they sailed it from there to the Mediterranean, where it continued to do cruising under a different brand. So that was quite interesting, because on this ship, I just came from the Noordam, which had its itineraries, had people on board, and here we were just with a skeleton crew of maybe 50 people. So we had only deck officers, we had engineers, we had some hotel staff, we had some chefs to cook. So it was a very small team. So on the ship, there was nothing going on. It was like a ghost ship. It was like a cruise ship with hardly anybody on board. So all the lights were off, and even the stage where normally there's performances and shows, they were empty. But the crew at night, they like to go on the stage and play drums. So I remember the hotel manager, he went on the stage and he was drumming, and we had some Indonesians, they could play guitar and they were playing guitar. So yeah, it was quite interesting to see the crew on the stage performing. But yeah, that was the Nieuw Amsterdam. Then my next ship was the Volendam. It was a more modern ship, and the Volendam, we did Caribbean cruises. We did it from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Let's see, Fort Lauderdale over here, and then we went through the Caribbean. And I don't remember all the various ports because I've been to the Caribbean so many times that it all runs together at this point. But typically, we went to Half Moon Cay, which is the private island from Holland Maritime, very nice. And then we went to Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados. I remember all these places. Let's see. Yeah, we did the ABC Islands, of course, because it's Dutch islands, the Dutch Antilles, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curaçao. We also did the Panama Canal, not all the way, but we went through the first set of locks. And then we went back through. I remember we went to Costa Rica and, of course, the Cayman Islands. And I don't remember. I don't think we went there. But yeah, and then we went back to the Gulf Stream and then speed up because here is a lot of current. So we would do almost over 25 knots sometimes. So if you're on one watch, you do 4 hours on watch. If you can do more than 100 miles in one watch, that's pretty crazy. Because normally the ship goes about maybe 21 knots or economic speed. But if you can do 25 knots, because you have the current with you, and you could log more than 100 hours in your watch, that was always quite cool. So that was the Volendam. Yeah, I think we did lots of Caribbean cruises, and yeah. So, of course, this picture I have to tell you. So on board the Volendam, that's where I met my wife. She was also working on the ship, and yeah, we started from then on. We started cruising together, so that was very nice. Then I sailed on the the Zaandam. And the Zaandam, we did Hawaiian cruises and Alaska cruises. So when it was still summer, I would say, in North America, we would leave from Vancouver over here, and then we went all the way up to we went to Ketchikan and Juneau, and let's see what else. Ketchikan, Juneau. And we went to Haines and Skagway, and we also went to the Glacier Bay, the national park, which was absolutely gorgeous there with yeah, all the glaciers that you get to see over there. It was just yeah, very, very, very cool. Then yeah, I had to do a whale avoidance course on this because we were sailing in areas where there was a lot of humpback whales, and so we had to understand what their patterns are, what they look like, and how we can avoid them. Now, in all these areas where there's whales, I believe the speed was 12 knots or lower, because if you hit a whale with 12 knots, then it might be bruised, but it won't be severely injured. Yeah, we had to go zigzag around them all the time. Now here they would come for feeding, so they would eat here in Alaska, and then in the winter, when it got winter here and cold, they would all swim over to Hawaii. Right over here, and we would too. So we would migrate with them. Basically, when they would be leaving because it was getting too cold, we were leaving there as well, and we would go to Hawaii, and then we did Hawaiian cruises, and then from Hawaii we went to San Diego, and one port, Ensenada. We went there as well for a technical reason I will explain another time. So yeah, that's what we did, and then we went back to Alaska, and that's how we did round and round and round. But it was cool because here in Hawaii, that is where the whales would get their babies. So that was really cool to see. They were basically with us all the time. We would see them here, and we would see them in Alaska. Then my next ship was the Maasdam. On the Maasdam, I have to remember, we did some cruising in the Caribbean, And I remember I had to plan the route because we were gonna do a repositioning cruise from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So after we finished our Caribbean cruises through all these various ports, we were then going from Fort Lauderdale all the way to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. But obviously we didn't go all the way straight. To make it a cruise, we stopped at various ports on the east coast of America, and then we went to Nova Scotia and Halifax. We went to Prince PEI. We did some other, Newfoundland is over here. So we went to Canada and over here. But then we had to make the crossing over, and we were going to go through Greenland, which was super cool. Now, in Greenland, obviously, there was still a lot of ice. A lot of ice was flowing through here, the Labrador Sea, and there is this is the Prince Christian Sund, which is a very beautiful fjord here on the south tip of Greenland that we went through. But when I was planning the route, I could see that there was still too much ice in this whole area, and it was actually clogging up the entrance for us to go through. But it was a highlight of the cruise, and most people, obviously want to go through there. So I was checking the ice charts every day to make sure, can we go through or not? But we made our way to Greenland, and I was tracking it. And I think a day before we got there, it finally unclogged enough for us to sail through here, which I wouldn't want to have missed either, because this was a beautiful going through all these fjords. There was still some icebergs, but little icebergs. Now, I came on watch one time somewhere between Canada and Greenland, and oh my God, there was some giant icebergs. I mean, the size of like maybe 5 or 6 times the size of our cruise ship. So I don't know, let's say maybe half a mile long or something like that. It was huge icebergs, and of course I got this Titanic vibe, because the Titanic went through all that as well. But we went around those, far enough, because what you see on top, there's more ice underwater than above the water. So they were absolutely huge. So then we went from Greenland, we went to Iceland, we went to Reykjavik, and then we sailed up the coast. We went through Ísafjörður over here. Now, if you go from here to here, you actually cross somewhere about here. You cross the Arctic Circle. And I wanted to propose to my wife while we were crossing the Arctic Circle. So we planned it, and another officer took over my watch, and I went to get my wife, and she was like, "Who's driving the ship?" I said, "Well, don't worry about it. Somebody else is driving the ship." I said, "Come on, come with me. We'll go to the bow." And she worked with the kids. So not worked with the kids, but she did entertainment for the kids as a youth staff coordinator. So they were at a ceremony that is a ceremony for crossing the Arctic Circle. So what you can do on a cruise ship, they do this in the Panama Canal or on the equator or the Arctic Circle, that you can swim in the Panama Canal or you can swim on the Arctic Circle, but it's actually swimming on board the pool of the cruise ship. So she was at that ceremony, and they would honk the horn once we crossed the Arctic Circle. That would be the start of the ceremony. But I was on watch, and we passed the Arctic Circle probably by 20 or 30 miles already. It was already way behind us, but obviously there's no line in the water that passengers can see. So we did not honk the horn because when I proposed to my wife here on the bow, and all the officers, they were looking here on the bridge, and the captain was there, and they took pictures and photos. But once I went on my knees and I asked her, and then we kissed, that is when they honked the horn. And that was basically the start also of the ceremony for the Arctic Circle ceremony for crossing the Arctic Circle. But it was really for because I just went on my knees, and we were engaged. So that was a pretty cool experience on the Maasdam I will never forget. And then we went over Iceland, over the top. We did a couple of other ports here, and then we crossed over to the Faroe Islands, and then we went over to Scotland, and we went to England, and then we went to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And I remember when we were here, after that we sailed back out. Yeah, and I don't remember where we went after that. It all runs together. Too many cruises. Then the next ship, I was actually on the Zaandam at the time. We were in Hawaii with the Zaandam, but they needed an officer on the Statendam. So I flew from Honolulu to New York, and from New York to St. Thomas, I believe. And that's where I joined the Statendam. I did some more Caribbean cruises there. And then we were also visited the Eurodam. That was also Caribbean cruises. I think this was Turks and Caicos, I believe. I think that's what we were doing there. Caribbean cruises. Oh wait, I'm way off. Wait, over here. Let's see. Yeah, Turks and Caicos. That's where we were, and we cruised around the Caribbean, which I must say, like, I probably enjoyed the Caribbean cruises the most because it was always beautiful weather, and yeah, nice itineraries, lots of beaches, very tropical. I preferred that. It was very nice. And then I joined something completely different. I joined the Finesse, which was a semi-submersible, which is basically a ship that you can sink off, which is crazy. You're sinking your own ship, but it is because, as you can see, this platform here on the back is way too big to pick up with a crane and put on a ship. So what you do, you sink the ship, and then they float that platform over the top of the ship, and then you raise the ship out of the water, and with that you also raise the platform out of the water, and then you can take it to a different location. Now these were LNG. This was for an LNG refinery in Darwin in Australia, but we picked them up in Qingdao in China. So I flew to China. I joined the ship there to Qingdao. Let's see, over here, Qingdao. And then from there, we sailed into the East China Sea and through the Philippine Sea, and then through Indonesia, Banda Sea, Timor Sea, and then here to Darwin. It was also very nice because it was also very tropical. So we mostly had very good weather. So that was nice. So we went up and down this. I did 2 or 3 contracts. I think we made a stop in Singapore one time, and I think we made a stop in Kuala Lumpur also. But mostly from Qingdao and then back and forth to Darwin. Then let me see. Yeah, I think that was my last ship, and had some very nice experiences on the Finesse, because it was something totally different than all the other ships that I've ever sailed on. Now, if you found this interesting and you would like to get my maritime insights, like I said before, you can subscribe to my channel, and I would mostly suggest that you sign up for my free newsletter on my website, markhennis.com, because then you'll be sure to get all my videos, because YouTube will not show all my videos. Now, if you prefer to find me on social media, you can search for Mark Hennis on Instagram, on Twitter, or on Facebook. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I would also suggest to have a look at this video right over here.